How I made my very first game in Godot with no tutorial, and how it's absolutely horrendous creation that nobody should play, but I should share it anyways. For it's not a game, nor is it art, if it's not shared with the world. Some background, I do have some programming experience, none of it being professional. Most of it is self-taught. I've been making small, terrible games in my spare time for well over 6 years, but I've never really stuck much to this hobby. Pick Godot because it's lightweight, works well with Linux, and it seems very easy to use for a very simple 2D setup. Anyways, how did I make my very first Godot game? I've been watching Godot tutorials, but nothing ever really stuck in my head, and neither did I feel that I could ever use the knowledge that I learned for something that I wanted to create of my own from scratch. So I decided to change that. I wanted to prove to myself that I can do things on my own as well. I started by picking up the most simplest idea that came to mind. I wanted to make a simple choice game. You choose A or B. You either win or lose. That's it. That sounds rather simple. It still took me around 5 hours to complete, as I was so extremely new to Godot, and my programming and my game making skills were extremely rusty. I started by planning out what the game actually needed to do. Originally, I planned to display 2 hands, and the game would randomly decide which choice was the wrong one and which was the correct one. Naturally, you would pick one of these hands and you would either win or lose the game. I used a lot of pre-made assets that were already provided in the game. By a lot, I mean this very single logo. And so far, so good. The game is displaying my 2 so-called hands. And now I have to code the choice pattern. On game start, the game chooses random number 0 or 1. If it's either or, I made the script either pick the right or left hand to be the winner and the other to be the loser. Also good. So now I have to assign either one of these to each of the nodes on my screen and make sure the game recognizes when I click with the mouse on them. Also rather simple, as Godot handles this via area 2D and signals. Alright, but it isn't much of a game, so I decided to add a menu and some sprites to it. I had some game assets that I bought included in a bundle laying around, so I decided to make use of them. I had no idea what I was doing with the tile map or any of the scene changing methods. I also had to learn how to use the buttons effectively. By this point, my code is a mess, and I know it, but it really doesn't matter. This is all part of the learning process. You need to get your first disaster game out of the door. This is where the true learning happens. I learned so many new things by using a search engine and looking up different things. This is where you truly learn. By looking things up yourself and directly applying them, they stick better to memory than following a 1-hour YouTube tutorial. Sometimes you have to do this to be a means to an end, but you won't learn if that's all you do to create your game. At some point, you will reach a problem that you will have to solve on your own. I had to learn so many things I never really applied before. I didn't know there was a way to make sub-resourcings unique so my nodes were moving identically. Color React was blocking my mouse interaction when I added a background. Man, what are tile maps and how do they work? Animation, 2D scaling, and fixing my awful tiles, menus and scene transitions, attaching scripts and making global variables, how audio works through the whole game process. This is all a valuable lesson on your journey to learning how to make games, no matter what engine you use. So how does my end result look? I changed my hands to 2 little soldiers, and you have to pick the impostor. Is this game fun? Yeah, maybe for 5 seconds, but it's still a game. My very first and my own game made in Godot. Perhaps no sweat, tears, or blood went into this. Okay, maybe a few tears, but it's done. It's a game I can call my own. I'm not proud of it, and I would lock it in a basement in an instant if I had guests over for dinner. So what are the next steps? The next step is to challenge myself further and learn more of what Godot can offer. The next game should challenge your capabilities as a game developer. So I've already started planning my next game on paper before I start putting it into code. My recommendation is to always have a plan with a beginning and somewhat of an end. The project can always change entirely while you're working on it, but it's always good to keep achievable goals so you don't get lost in the vague zone of what you're doing with your life. Your game. Thank you for watching, and let me know what you thought in the comments below. Until next time.